Today I've been checking out the new Warhammer 40k Space Marines 2, which is out now and costs just over £41 on Steam, but I got it for £31 from CD Keys. It always pays to shop around. I know I'm late to the party on this one. This was one of these games I was saving for when I had some time off work over Christmas. Space Marine 2 is an action third-person shooter which has you killing hundreds of enemies in solo or multiplayer gameplay. As normal, I try and compare games. This one is maybe a little bit of Gears of War minus the cover system, maybe even a third-person version of StarCraft with the enemy. They could all be thrown in there. So what's the gameplay and story like? Well, you control Titus. You've been reinstated as an Ultramarine after being suspected of heresy at the end of the last game. I wouldn't say you need to play the original. It's still a good game if you want to check it out though. This time, you're fighting the Tyranids, which kind of look like weird dinosaur things. They kind of work on a hive-type mind, so they usually come for you in really large numbers. Them pesky Tyranids are invading a number of Imperium planets, and so you're called on to sort them out. However, there's more to what's going on than first seems. However, I would say, unless you're a die-hard Warhammer fan, that the lore and story is left a little bit wanting in more than a few places. It's not the best story I've ever seen, but I would say on the whole, it generally held my attention. The game plays exactly as you'd expect from a third-person combat game. This one I would say is more melee focused due to the amount of enemies you're fighting. But weirdly, the light and heavy attacks are both triggered by the same button, but the more light attacks you do, the more powerful your heavy move will be when you do it. There are also other combos, and occasionally when you're fighting, a blue or red marker will flash on the screen. Red means dodge, blue, if you time it right, a bit of a special move. There are also executions which give you armor back, kind of like Doom, you know, the thing will flash until you execute it. You also have a variety of weapons and grenades at your disposal, plus a rage type ability. The weapons are super punchy and sound great, and they're really impactful, so I did enjoy you. I will say one thing about the combat, it's so amazingly over the top, gory and violent. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, you are soaked in blood from start to finish, and killing a hard enemy with like a finishing execution is just amazing. But I will say on the flip side, the combat feels a tad, I don't know how to describe it, like weightless. When you're doing a lot of the melee combat, it just feels like it's lacking impact. Sometimes you don't even know if you're killing the enemy or you're just hitting an enemy that's already dead. You're just kind of mashing the button at times. And I don't think it offered enough feedback to the player. And when this is a big portion of the game, you know, I kind of was a bit like, oh, not again. One thing I will say about PC, I thought the controller played better than the mouse and keyboard, and there's not many games I'll say that about. I would say my biggest issue with the game though was probably the mission design and scenarios. They got super repetitive. Every area is just a corridor in one format or another. Progression is very, very linear. There's no real exploration or secrets to find. Every mission is just go somewhere and press a button. Oh, press another button. Oh, fight off endless hordes of enemies until a timer decides you've had enough of them enemies. Then you go back to the hub area and do it all again. I would just love to see more mission variety. It just wasn't there. However, this does bring me to one of the best things about this game. It's the horde system. I mean, wow, it's just amazing. This isn't faked. If you see 200 enemies running over the hill, 200 enemies will swarm you. They move as one, and some of the scenes looking over like the vistas and the areas as all these enemies are coming towards you is just like, oh my god, like you're sitting there like panicking. I don't know how they've done it, and I would love to see this in more games because it is really impactful just seeing all these enemies running towards you. Once you've completed the campaign, there's also a separate co-op mode named Operations, which can also be played. Once you've completed the campaign, there's also a separate co-op mode named Operations, which can be played solo. There's several scenarios in there, and they're based on sections from the main campaign where you're playing as a different set of Ultramarines. However, I think that could have been added into the campaign. There could have been a bit of swapping going on or something. However, it does add to the overall 6 to 8 hours that you'll get out of the campaign. There's also PvP, but I haven't heard anything about it, and I didn't try it out. Graphics wise, honestly, this game looks amazing from start to finish. It just nails the atmosphere. The level design is pretty good apart from always just being a corridor. Loved the art style. It ran great with no crashes. Sound design is great from its voice acting to weapon sounds, and explosions sound beefy. Just really good and immersive. So in conclusion, I would say it's so close to almost being like a perfect game. It's really held up by the quality of the visuals and sheer amount of enemies with that great attention to detail, but it's let down by poor mission design. The story's not that great, and I think the combat could have been a little bit more punchy and a little bit more better, especially the melee side. If they got those right, this would have been a great game. But saying that, it's still a very good game. It's well deserving of all its praise. I've really enjoyed playing it, and I'm going to go back in for some more now. Anyway guys, I'll catch you all later. Goodbye.